This is the February 2020 edition of JW Broadcasting.
Howdy heretics, and welcome to my rebuttal of the JW Broadcasting February. And I'm not as talented as John Cedars, but I will do my best. And this is a wonderful broadcasting. It teaches about how to be joyful. Mandatory joyful. And it also tells us if paradise will be vegetarian or vegan.
To set the stage, we'd like to begin with a few thoughts about the subject. Serve Jehovah with rejoicing. This is what we are told at Psalm 100, verse 2. But do you serve Jehovah with rejoicing all the time? I guess we all will agree that at times it can be difficult to be happy. So then, is it really important to serve Jehovah with rejoicing? And what does it really mean? In other words, what is this joyful attitude that Jehovah expects from us? And what can we do to serve Jehovah with rejoicing and maintain a joyful spirit? How can we prove that it is important to serve Jehovah with rejoicing? You might think of our goal, which is to reflect His personality. In 1 Timothy 1 verse 11, He is called the happy God. So isn't it logical that Jehovah expects us to be happy in His service?
So I like the mental gymnastics here. It starts with, is it really important to serve Jehovah rejoicing? And then directly skips to, what is this joyful attitude that Jehovah expects? So now it's mandatory. And then third step, how can we prove that it is important to serve Jehovah with rejoicing? So now prove. It's already proven to us. How can we prove it to others? So now we've already proven that it's mandatory to serve Jehovah with rejoicing. And that's actually just putting up a burden for depressed people, I think. There's a lot of depressed people in the organization that feel there's something wrong with them because they're depressed. Well, in fact, Jehovah's Witnesses are often depressed and overworked.
Is it realistic to expect that we'll smile all the time and cheerfully sing songs the whole day? Of course, this is not what Jehovah expects. There are moments in life when we are sad and disappointed. And Jehovah is fully aware that some of us are not healthy. Others might fight depression and are therefore at times just not able to express joy in this way. And yet, He loves all of us and appreciates us very much.
So now they told us there are circumstances where we might not be rejoiceful, and Jehovah is okay with that. And now they will tell us the complete opposite.
In these last days, we rarely, if ever, have perfect circumstances with no problems. So I think we can all agree that our joy in Jehovah's service is not based on circumstances. And we've had here on this program and in our publications many examples of ones who have maintained their joy in Jehovah's service despite challenging circumstances like poor health or opposition. So then, what is it that makes us a happy person? To help us to open up the scope of the answer, would you be willing to join me for a little experiment? Please close your eyes for a moment. Do you have your eyes closed? So now think about an apple. Now you can open your eyes again. Let me ask you a question. Did you think about a red apple? Green apple? Or a yellow apple? Why are you able to answer this question? All I asked you to do was to think about an apple. The answer is, we think in pictures. In fact, we think of countless pictures every day. And after we think about it, it's like we put all of the pictures in a stack. And then when we think the same thought a second time, it's like we pull the picture out from below and put it on top of the stack. The longer that we do not think the thought, the deeper the picture gets in the stack and it becomes more difficult to remember. Now, this stack of pictures representing our thoughts is our subconscious. This stack of pictures makes up our emotional state or state of mind. It determines whether we are sad or happy, whether we are bored or excited, and so forth. Jehovah, our Creator, is aware of this powerful connection between our thoughts and pictures. When we compare the emotions of Elijah with his attendant, what made the difference? The circumstances were exactly the same. Their thoughts made the difference. Now, what does this have to do with our subject, serve Jehovah with rejoicing? So far, we have established that Jehovah expects us to be happy, right? We have seen that our thoughts can be pictures that influence who we are and how we feel. Pictures and thoughts are closely connected. And that's why the Apostle Paul at Romans 12 verse 2 highlights the importance of our thoughts when he said, "Be transformed by making your mind over." Or at Ephesians 4 verse 23, he emphasized this by saying, "And you should continue to be made new in your dominant mental attitude." Both scriptures highlight that our thoughts are critical and have a bearing on our whole being. Additionally, the Apostle Paul knew that we can change our thinking. Please turn with me to 2 Corinthians chapter 10 and see what he recommends that we do. Here in 2 Corinthians 10 verse 5, he says, "We are bringing every thought into captivity to make it obedient to the Christ." Isn't this exactly what we should do? We control what we think. We avoid occupying our mind with thoughts that weaken our faith, or thoughts that undermine our determination to serve Jehovah. Remember, we said, thoughts are like pictures that stay within us. We cannot delete them, and they will have an effect on how we feel. But is there something else we can do? Are you ready for a second experiment? Please close your eyes again and do not think of an apple. You can open your eyes again. Were you successful in not thinking of an apple? If so, you probably had to force yourself to think of something else. We are made to think. So, the key for serving Jehovah with rejoicing lies not just in avoiding negative thoughts, but also in thinking healthy thoughts. Philippians chapter 4 lists a few of them. We read in verse 8, "Finally, brothers, whatever things are true, whatever things are of serious concern, whatever things are righteous, whatever things are chaste, whatever things are lovable, whatever things are well spoken of, whatever things are virtuous, and whatever things are praiseworthy, continue considering or thinking about, meditating on these things."
So when people hear these scriptures, they will normally think about their own religion. So Jehovah's Witnesses will think about the Jehovah's Witness religion. It's true and it's spoken well of. Well, I would say it's not true. That we could debate. It's not true, according to me. But one thing we can agree on is that the teachings of Jesus, they are spoken well of. Jesus is a very popular guy, spoken well of. But the Jehovah's Witnesses, and especially the Watchtower organization, is not spoken well of. Everyone loves Jesus. No one loves Watchtower. It's not spoken well of.
By considering and meditating on these healthy subjects, We create pictures in our mind that make it easier for us to display our joy in Jehovah's service. Serving Jehovah with rejoicing really depends on us. Happiness does not depend on our circumstances. Happiness comes from doing things Jehovah's way. When we actively control our thoughts, we add more pleasant pictures, and even if, in the past, we've experienced things that make it difficult to express happiness, in time, these unpleasant pictures will be buried under thoughts like those listed in Philippians chapter 4. And gradually, our inner peace, contentment, and happiness grows and can be seen by others. Jehovah, our happy God, appreciates every little step in this direction because it's important to Him that we serve Him with rejoicing.
When I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness child, I thought this was normal. The watchtower tell me what to think, what not to think, how to replace your illegal thoughts with legal thoughts, and how the only way to be happy is to serve watchtower, selling watchtower propaganda and recruit new members. And when you're in a cult, you don't realize it yourself, but unless you allow yourself to think the illegal thought. If there are thoughts that are illegal and you are afraid of thinking them, then you're in a cult. So, allow yourself to think illegal thought. If you're not in a cult, it won't harm you. If you're in a cult, it will liberate you. So, I think the only thing we're missing in this cult propaganda is some kind of threat, from the Bible that unless you're happy, Jehovah will curse you and kill you. Could we please have some death threats? That Jehovah, the happy God, will kill me unless I'm happy?
In Deuteronomy chapter 28, we find a report of God's dealings with the Israelites. Here Jehovah warned them of what would take place if they became disobedient and lost their joy in serving Him. We read at Deuteronomy chapter 28, beginning in verse 45, "All these curses will certainly come upon you, because you did not listen to the voice of Jehovah your God by keeping His commandments, and because you did not serve Jehovah your God with rejoicing and joy of heart, when you had such an abundance of everything."
Thank you. I really appreciate a good threat. Jehovah will kill me unless I'm rejoicing. And I'm not rejoicing if I'm thinking illegal thoughts about Watchtower. You should never doubt Watchtower. Now I would like some kind of encouragement to give something to Watchtower. If not money, at least I can give admiration. Preferably give it in a way that make me feel bad about myself, if it's possible.
You recall Jesus said, "There is more happiness in giving than there is in receiving." And isn't it true that when we give commendation, praise, and words of appreciation to others, we experience joy? In the following interviews, notice why some hesitate to express appreciation. We'll see how they were helped by applying lessons they learned from the Watchtower.
I work as a pioneer and also as a commuter at Bethel. I find this service to be very enjoyable. However, because of my busy schedule, at times I almost forget to express my appreciation to the brothers and sisters. I suddenly realized that even if I feel appreciative, I might fail to express it. Esau was an impatient man. In contrast, David thought deeply about how wonderful pure worship is. I came to realize that it is important to think deeply.
Jehovah richly rewards us. If Jehovah desires to express his appreciation, what kind of person am I if I don't show it from the heart? Perhaps I might be thinking to myself that I deserve to be appreciated.
By expressing appreciation, I feel very happy. My relationship with brothers and sisters within the congregation has gotten better, and the bonds of friendship between us are stronger. I realize that the reason why Jehovah encourages us to express our appreciation to others is for our happiness. That drew me even closer to Jehovah.
Yes, the key to happiness is to show appreciation to Jehovah's organization, aka Watchtower. Being a pioneer and a Bethelite is not good enough. And the guy who was providing for his family? Why would he deserve appreciation? No, only Watchtower deserve appreciation, and it will make you happy. Win-win. So, one of the good things with Jehovah's Witnesses, and I really mean that, is that they focus on taking care of their old people. But they have a weird way of doing it. And in this next demonstration, you see a very funny Jehovah's Witness family. It's the Watchtower's wet dream how a family should be.
This wasn't the first health scare with Mum. And my brother and sister were always quick to help out. This time was different. She'd be here for at least another week, then more long-term care. We just weren't prepared for that. I should have accepted more help when the friends offered. I just didn't want to be a burden. Janice understood, and she was wondering how this might affect her Bethel service. Terence wished he lived closer so he could do more. We decided to pray, sleep on it, and regroup after doing some research.
I love this family. It's not a real family, because in real life, Jehovah's Witness family, there's always someone that's disfellowshipped, or there's always someone that's bad association. But in this family, everyone is Jehovah's Witnesses, and everyone giving as much as possible to Watchtower. The daughter in the family is on Bethel, and yeah, it's a Watchtower's wet dream, how a family should be. And when they encounter a problem, well, they take care of their mother. That's a good thing. I like that. But it's fun to see when we have to do research. Because if you have a sick family member and you want to take care of them, it's an honorable thing. I've been in the position myself, and you do research. In most civilized countries, the government have system to help you. So you research that, and you can find, well, most countries have public health care, but they do more things. Like here in Norway, I got $20,000 grant to build a wheelchair entrance for my sick wife, because then it would be easier for me to take care of her. That's a good thing. That's the kind of stuff you find out when you do research. Now she left me, so I ended up I lost the grant automatically, and instead I have a big hole in front of my entrance door. But that's not the point. The point is, it's a good thing to do research and see what possibilities you have. But Watchtower family make research in Watchtower literature. And that's why they came up with this information.
I shared the example of Joseph at Genesis 45. Where he told his father, "You must dwell in the land of Goshen, where you will be near me. I will supply you with food."
I love this. The Watchtower family, 3 grown-ups are making research, and they came up with the fact that old people need food. Thank you, Jehovah. Thank you, Jehovah. That's what's called divine wisdom. They would never find out stuff like this unless they were a Watchtower family. Yes, the Bible tells us that in ancient Egypt, old people needed food.
Janice and Terence found great articles too, offering solutions such as asking for periodic help, making more time to communicate with Mum, or even getting a part-time nurse.
So there's some really good advice here. I acknowledge that. These people are good people taking care of their mother. What I find a little sinister, if I may be critical, is that Watchtower always give advice what is good for Watchtower. In this case, the daughter is working on Bethel. That means that she's working on the Australian branch office for Jehovah's Witnesses without being paid. So a loving organization could say to this woman, this sister, that you spend your whole youth working for Watchtower without getting paid, and now your mother old. Take some time off every week and take care of your mother so you can work part-time in Bethel. But no. The rest of the family are supposed to hire a nurse. And that comes out of their own pocket. So, and that's a big burden, financial burden. It's an honorable burden. But why wouldn't a loving organization do that? This daughter in this fictive, it's not a real family, but why wouldn't that woman, if she'd been working on Bethel and she's working in the garden, so it's not like she's a key person that they can't live without. They could easily say to her, you can take 2 days off every week to tend to your mother, because this is God's loving organization. No. It's the 2 other siblings that had to pay for the nurse out of their own pocket. So, I'm sorry to be critical, but I don't like that. I've been on Bethel, and they can be really asshole-ish sometimes. It's not a loving organization, but, well, at least they took care of the old lady. So that's one of the good things I liked being a Jehovah's Witness, was that they always said, if you work on Bethel, when you get old, we take care of you. And you could stay for the rest of your life at Bethel. I knew a sister, she was over 100 years living on Bethel, and they would have like a nursing home. And also, if you were a circuit overseer, you could stay on Bethel in your old years, because if you're serving Jehovah your whole life, you don't have any pension, you don't have anything. So they promised to take care of you. And that's a promise in recent years they've broken. And we will see an example of this now with a couple that served Jehovah as circuit overseers.
Full-time service is a special way to serve Jehovah with a joyful heart. But What happens to your joy when you suddenly face a serious trial? Jay and Elaine Humer, you have been through this. Thank you for being here today to share your personal experience with us. You've enjoyed full-time service for over 40 years, many of those years in the traveling work.
Yes, we've had a wonderful privilege of both pioneering and serving the traveling work for 30 years now. And we really feel Jehovah's been very kind to allow us to serve him this way.
I remember when I first filled out my application for regular pioneering back in 1972, and I thought, this was my gift to Jehovah, my sacrifice. But after the many years of the blessings and the privileges and how Jehovah helped us through some very difficult times, what I thought was my gift to Jehovah turned out to be his gift to me.
So that's nice. What you thought were your gift to Jehovah was actually his gift to you, and you received many blessings. Please tell us more about these blessings.
Now, you mentioned difficult times. Is there anything in particular you think of?
One of the hardest things that we faced was about 20 years ago when we experienced 7 deaths in just a 6-month period.
This really was difficult because 5 of those 7 were family members. Jay's father died, my Aunt Elma, who brought me into the truth, died, and my father died. So it just seemed one layer on top of another.
We can hardly imagine how you must have felt. Now, after such a Job-like experience, what did you do in order to regain your joy and happiness?
Well, it didn't occur automatically. We kept focused, of course, on serving the friends and working with them, and that kept our thoughts from constantly circling around our losses. We also thought about the resurrection. We focused on the resurrection hope, and as we did, it became like the helmet of salvation, protecting our hearts and our thoughts from the grief that we were going through. The most difficult of all was about 4 years after that, when our beloved nephew Christopher was killed in an auto accident at the age of 17. He and his parents had lived with us in the same house for a number of years before he went on the road. And we always looked at Christopher like the son that we would never have this side of Armageddon. So his death was particularly tragic.
It was excruciating for all of our family members, especially his parents. Christopher was on his way to the Kingdom Hall to meet his papa and his grandmother for field service, and his car hit a patch of ice and slid into an oncoming car. He died instantly. This was so difficult on us. Our hearts were broken and our spirits were nearly crushed. It actually rendered me speechless. Even to beg for the groanings unuttered became very difficult.
Did you do something else?
Now I started looking for some of the artwork in the publications. And one particular picture I found was of a shepherd who had gone into a bramble bush and rescued a lamb. He was lost. He pulled him out, threw him over his shoulders, and held on to him. And I thought, what a safe place to be, such security. I decided to take the picture and to print it out and just enlarge it a little bit. But what I didn't see on the publication page, I saw when I enlarged it, and that there were scratches on the shepherd's face. And I thought what that shepherd had gone through to go in the bramble bush and pull him out. And then I thought about Jehovah as our great shepherd and the lengths that he went to rescue us, even at the cost of pain for himself. Now I was listening and drawing back close to Jehovah.
So then, what did you do with these articles and the pictures?
So now I decided to print them all out. The articles, the pictures, and the scriptures, and I displayed them on my desk for quite some time. But I put them in a big envelope, or like a file, and I thought that was Jehovah's sympathy card to me.
We knew we had to do something so as not to be swept away by our grief. It's been said that grief is an arduous journey, but one that we cannot avoid. It's not a place where we live, but a passage, as it were. And we know that even though grief never goes away, it does change over time. That's because Jehovah made our hearts to heal, and so in time, that's what we did.
Yeah, he sure did. It's not about the lack of faith. It's simply the price of love. We loved Christopher, and we miss him.
It wasn't like we were leaving him behind. Sometimes that's how you feel when you lose a loved one. But in reality, we know that Christopher is in Jehovah's memory. And as the righteous God, Jehovah never forgets his loyal ones. Christopher was one of them. So we're confident that we're going to see him again. And that's what helps us not to be, as it were, looking always in the rearview mirror, but looking ahead to the time when we will be with him in paradise.
You know, Jehovah truly kept his promises, and he carried us through that storm. He gathered up the pieces of our broken hearts and sealed them. And even though this happened 17 years ago, sure, we still have cracks in our hearts, but we know for a certainty those one day will disappear as well in that paradise when we welcome him back home. And so Jehovah truly proved to be my stronghold, my father, and my friend in a profound way. We learn that Jehovah truly does love us and care, protects us, and because he is such a good father, our joy has come back, and we have had such a rich life.
So in all the years we've had the privilege of serving our God, we've always found that no matter what we give Jehovah, no matter what sacrifices we make for him, he always gives us more. You can out-generous the most generous person in the universe.
So Jehovah is a generous God, and no matter what you give up for Jehovah, he will give you more in return, like this lovely couple. They gave up having a family, they gave up having a professional career, and they served, I think it was 40 years, they served Watchtower, and Jehovah gave them even more. They got a Hallmark card after Jehovah did not intervene, saving a young boy in a senseless accident. So they get a Hallmark card. Well, they had to print it themselves, but they got a Hallmark card. And then, yeah, Jehovah collected their tears in a leather bottle. That's a good thing to know. So, to be honest, I think they deserve better. And it used to be that Watchtower always said that we take care of our own, we take care of our own family. If you're a member of the Bethel family, we take care of you when you get old. And this also included circuit overseers. And now they don't honor that promise. And it's one thing that you're wrong about Armageddon. That's a religious delusion. But not to pay the salary to your employees, because it was a promise made that we take care of our own. Shame on you. These people deserve better. And now the only thing you can tell them is to focus on the hope of resurrection. That's just wishful thinking. You can't tell your employees to go out, be well-fed, lick a stone to survive, and focus on wishful thinking. It's one thing to be wrong about religion, but it's an asshole move not to pay what you owe your employees after working so many years for you. So this actually makes me angry, because these people deserve better than empty promises.
And so just as he has blessed us all these many years, we're confident that he will continue to bless us as we transition to our next assignment.
Thank you so much for sharing your personal experiences with us. And may Jehovah continue to be with the two of you as you now continue your full-time service as special pioneers. Now we'll look at the joy and challenges that come with raising children. We'll travel to Alaska in the United States to visit the Bodie family. Let's see what we can learn from the example set by the parents Dale and Nadja.
We were serving in a small town in Alberta, and then we began having children.
When we moved to Craig, we had 4 children, and after living here, we now have 9 children.
You were given this trust, and so as a parent, you need to put the kingdom first. You need to set a good example. You need to be at the meetings. You need to be regular in field service.
We really believed that we needed to love Jehovah first in order to be a good example to our children.
No. No, no, no. As a parent, you should put your family first. As a parent, you should put your children first. You should not put Jehovah, aka Watchtower, first. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry and they can fend for themselves. Your children cannot. You should put your children first.
With 9 kids, it's always going to be hectic. You have extra children, you have more excuses, perhaps.
Having 9 children is a challenge in a million ways.
And yet, yeah, she had moments where she'd sit in her rocking chair and just look so exhausted.
I remember one time when it was time to go to the meeting, but I was so exhausted, and I thought of Isaiah 40, where Jehovah says that those hoping in Jehovah will regain power. So I figured, Jehovah wants me to do it. He's going to make me strong enough to do this. So I prayed and I got ready.
It's a scramble.
In Hebrews, we see the encouragement to never forsake our meeting together. My dad always spoke of that.
There was a time that we had to travel in the wintertime, maybe up to 2 hours to get to the meeting. You'd come back to your home late at night, with all these kids that are worn out and yourself too.
When Watchtower allow extraordinary witnesses to tell extraordinary experience, it is mainly because they want to allow ordinary witness to feel belittled. Because if they could handle this situation with 9 kids, what's my excuse? Why couldn't I do it with only 1? So they always tell stories like that. Like, oh, there was a sister with no arms and no legs, and she had to swim over a crocodile-infested water to make a return visit to an angry man that lived inside a shark. Stories like that make, when you compare that to what you're doing, it's not enough. So that's why they tell these stories. But this might be a true story. It sounds very much like my grandparents. My grandparents had 9 kids. They also moved out in isolated territory and drove hours to meetings. Here they said they drove 2 hours to meetings on a school night. So it's 2 hours to the meeting, and then let's say 3 hours for the meeting with some mingling, and then 2 hours back. That makes 7 hours. Small children on a school night, 7 hours. That's not cool. That's not responsible parenting. Well, at least the kids got the weekend off.
It just was what we did. That wasn't questioned. We got up on Saturday morning and we got ourselves out the door and in service.
And we couldn't simply just be backseat ornament. We knew that we were there to give a witness.
I do a lot of protesting and lobbying for human rights, and this is my favorite side. It's very non-aggressive, just say UN Convention of the Rights of a Child, and then I have the Watchtower violations on the back side, if someone asks me. And one of the more obscure rights is Article 31. It says, children have the right to rest and play. I know it's an obscure one. I know someone would argue it's a stretch. But still, in this case, I think it's pretty fair to say that the Watchtower religion and the Watchtower emphasize on salvation through works. Children don't really have the time to play. Okay, admittedly, this family and my family too would do some swimming, or we used to pick cloudberries after field service. But still, yeah, it's not all bad. But still, 7 hours on a meeting on a Tuesday, I suppose, on a school night, and weekends, field service. Nah, I think there's so much more to do in life than serve Watchtower. At least I'm happy now, and it's not because it's mandatory.
Next, we'll hear from Brother Stephen Led of the governing body. He spoke to the Bethel family about an enemy of joy and where to find the antidote to it.
Now, my theme is guard against every sort of greed. Jehovah lovingly gave counsel to Jeremiah's secretary, Baruch, to stop seeking great things for himself. At Genesis 8:21, Jehovah said, "The inclination of the heart of man is bad from his youth up." And one form of badness is greed. This tendency toward greed becomes manifest very early. For example, as we see little toddlers grab things and hold them tightly. Mine, mine, mine. The world. We are relentlessly surrounded by Satan's world and his spirit called the spirit of the world. We could say that Jehovah breathes Holy Spirit to influence his people to act like him and be unselfish. But Satan, in effect, exhales the stinky spirit of the world that makes people act like him in being greedy. And one way Satan's world promotes greed for material things is by the relentless advertising. See, people are constantly bombarded with advertisements. For example, here's just an example. They may bring out a shiny new car, has about 12 coats of wax on it. They got all these spotlights shining on it. They bring in a camera from all different angles. And about this time, a scantily clothed woman comes strolling out to that automobile. And you don't even notice it, but there's soft music playing in the background. As she opens the door, gets in, a crescendo is reached in the background music. You're made to feel, you poor, poor loser, if you don't have that car, see? They don't talk about the heavy payments you're going to have to make, how many meetings you're going to have to miss to make those payments. You poor loser, if you don't have that car. And similar advertising methods are used very often in promoting many other gadgets and material things. So obviously we have to fight hard against the spirit of the world.
Advertising an automobile is a despicable thing to do because no automobile manufacturer could ever deliver on that promise. Watchtower, on the other hand, is spirit-directed. They would never advertise their product. They would not use soft music that builds up to a crescendo. They would not use pictures of beautiful women in their videos. Especially would they never use a picture of a beautiful woman looking longingly to her husband because he bought the Watchtower product. And especially Watchtower would never sell a product they cannot deliver. So we got to hand that to them. And now we have this month's music video about resurrection.
As we discussed earlier, happiness does not depend on our circumstances, but on our thoughts and our outlook. And we can influence our thoughts by what we picture in our mind's eye. We'll see that beautifully brought to life in our new music video entitled The New World to Come.
Take a moment now and picture the scene. Up ahead on the path are what seem to be children laughing at play. In a world free of the fears we once faced, and taking care of this beautiful earth are a people that live by our Father's words until the moon is no more. There is the peace we have been waiting for.
Okay, I stand corrected. Watchtower did use some soft music to push their product in this video, but we get to see also some of the spiritual blessings we will receive in paradise. Not the material blessings, greed is bad. The spiritual blessings, like a beautiful farm, real estate, a pet Labrador with a lifespan of 13 years, and a beach house. Spiritual blessings.
Hope is a fire in our hearts. Hope is an anchor that holds us firm. Hope is a light that shines like the sun as we see ourselves there in the new world to come. Take a moment now and think of our place, by the mountains and rivers or wide open plains. It's a place to call home. And now walking in through your front door, there is someone that you know, holding out his open arms in hopes of a tearful embrace. Feels like forever since you've been face to face. Even death won't stop our God's outstretched love in the new world to come. Hope is a fire in our hearts. Hope is an anchor that holds us firm. Hope is a light that shines like the sun as we see ourselves there in the new world to come. And every word from his mouth, will do all for which he sent it out. Jehovah's will for this earth is fulfilling every living thing's last wish.
You'll probably want to listen to that song again and again, again and again, again and again, again and again. Or you might even want to sing it yourself. Let's conclude this month's program with a visit to a truly beautiful part of the earth, Martinique. This island in the Eastern Caribbean measures just 50 miles or about 80 kilometers by 22 miles or 35 kilometers. Yet Martinique, nicknamed the Island of Flowers, has stunning geographic diversity with beaches, forests, rivers, sugarcane plantations, and rugged mountains. The highest point is Mount Pully, infamous for causing the deadliest volcanic eruption in the 20th century.
So the happy god Jehovah lovingly created a volcano that killed a lot of people. Could we maybe somehow push the blame on the victim?
When Pully erupted in 1902, nearly 30,000 people died because they ignored the warnings. Our brothers and sisters in La Trinité Martinique send you their warm Christian love and greetings. From the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses, this is JW Broadcasting.
This was my rebuttal of the JW Broadcasting February 2020. I hope you liked it. I hope you are among my 144,000 subscribers. If not, you can partake from the subscription and the notification bell. And this is a great year. We're planning a lot of protest. Hashtag all religions must. All religions must respect human rights. Watchtower believe they can do whatever, but they cannot. Human rights should be a bare minimum. So stay tuned and maybe we will see each other on a protest. So thanks for watching.